Good afternoon. You're all very welcome here today as we officially unveil the new head coach of our women's national team, Carla Ward. This is a very important position in Irish sport. It is also an exciting appointment for the association and Irish football. Carla was the outstanding candidate and we are thrilled that she's with us. She possesses the perfect blend of expertise and experience to deliver on our ambition to qualify for major tournaments, compete against the best teams in the world, and continue growing support for the women's game in Ireland. I would like to thank my fellow members of the recruitment panel, Paul Cook, Packy Bonner, Laura Finnegan, Marc Canham, and Aoife Rafferty. We have run a thorough and confidential process which resulted in us appointing the best candidate to take the team forward. Carla is widely respected and a popular figure in football. I've been really impressed with her ambitions for the role and I am excited at what she can bring to this team and to Irish football. She has the full support of everyone at the association and I have no doubt our wider football family as well. I look forward to our fans giving her a warm Irish welcome as we kick off our 2025 season and her tenure in the Nations League next month. I'm going to pass now to Marc, who's going to offer some further background on the detail of the appointment process. Congrats to Carla.
Thanks.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. We're absolutely delighted to unveil Carla Ward as our new head coach to you, the Irish media, and also the public here today. As David mentioned, the head coach of the women's national team is one of the most important roles in Irish sport. It's also a crucial period for the team as they embark on the new Nations League this year and prepare for the World Cup qualifying campaign. Our number one objective is to qualify for the World Cup in Brazil in 2027, and with Carla at the helm, we believe we're going to give ourselves the best chance of achieving this ambition. Carla was the outstanding candidate in the process, and we're really excited for what she'll bring to the role. She has recent international experience with the USA as a technical advisor, working alongside Emma Hayes at the 2024 Olympics, where the US team claimed gold. She also has significant experience at club level, in particular working with Aston Villa, Birmingham and Sheffield United. Looking at her club experience, what really stood out for us was a clear track record of working with teams and maximising their potential. Some examples where Carla led Sheffield United to the highest ever finish of second in the FA Women's Championship. At Birmingham City maintained the club's WSL Women's Super League status, and she guided Aston Villa to their highest ever finish of fifth in the Women's Super League. That demonstrated to us that she can unify a group of players, get them to buy in and get the very best out of them. Carla is very clear in her convictions, but also very collaborative and open to other views and ideas, which is really important to us. She's very familiar with a lot of our players and worked with many of them previously. We have a great group of players who are very proud, who are playing for Ireland, who we are very proud of and who have great potential now and in the future. The existing culture and environment are very strong, and we believe that Carla is the coach that can build on this further and take us to the next level on the pitch. We're also very pleased that Emma Byrne, our record appearance holder, will continue on the coaching staff as goalkeeping coach. In addition, we are delighted to announce that Alan Mahan, as assistant coach, a former Ireland international, a fantastic person and coach, highly respected, and has significant experience of coaching at the elite level with Man City over the last decade, and will be an excellent addition to the team. Finally, from me, we're thrilled to welcome Carla and excited at what she'll bring to our senior women's team, the Association, Irish Football and Women and Girls Football in Ireland. I know this is a very proud day for Carla and her family, and I know how determined she is to succeed in her role. She'll be getting straight to business and starting preparation for the Nations League games this next month, and thank you very much, and we're happy to take your questions.
Okay. If you want to raise your hand, we'll take some questions. Anne-Marie.
Hi Carla.
How are you?
Congratulations on the
Thank
new
you.
role. Could you just talk to us a bit about what attracted you to come to Ireland and manage our national team?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. First of all, been fortunate to coach some great players over the years, and many of them Irish. And I've always loved the Irish mentality. I've loved working with Irish players, even if the ones I've played with are a little bit wild. But yeah, no, I think anyone that knows me, certainly those that know what I've done in England, I'm very passionate. I'd like to think that I've got a little bit of an Irish mentality. So, yeah, I thought it was the right mix, the right time for me, and I think it's I'm going to say it. I think it's the perfect match, to be honest.
What's kind of, for people who might not know you too well from your coaching career, what kind of principles do you have? What's your style? And as you say, if it's the perfect match, how does that line up with our kind of style? Yeah,
look, I think I've proven at all 3 clubs I've been at, I like to be in a team that's exciting to play in, exciting to watch. I think that's shone through in all of the clubs I've been at, and we like to get players to play with a smile on their face. Number one, I think my whole career has been based around people, and it has to be about people rather than players and getting the best out of them. And I think if we can create an environment where people enjoy coming in, and that sounds easier said than done, but I think it's really important, then we can get the best out of them and we can maximise their potential.
Marc, David, I don't know who's best to kind of take this, but could we hear the Colin Healy quotes today? And I suppose the question is, how did this happen? How did were you on one page and Marc was on another?
Yeah, I suppose I'll let Marc start and then I'll conclude if that's okay.
Yeah, first of all, just to say thanks and our gratitude for Colin for his efforts and commitment to the women's national team over the last period of time. We have huge respect for him as a person and as a coach. The decision we made to not renew Eileen's contract was purely a football decision, and that was the same with Colin's in terms of a football decision. All of my conversations before leading up to the final games against Wales and then after that, they were all confidential, and that's the plan, to keep that in a way. It's not my intention today to share any of those details. It's not my style or our style as an association, and it's important to remain confidential. Obviously not in my control or our control that some of the elements of those conversations have been aired publicly. What I can say is I've been very consistent in all my conversations with Colin, his agent, and other people that have been involved in those conversations, that the decision that we make on the renewal of the contract or non-renewal would be based on a review, which is very consistent to what we've done with other teams in the association, with other head coaches. And it's very consistent throughout that would be the case. And the staff and players were involved in that review, and it was always transparent that would be the case. And the decision was made then, after an assessment, that we would not renew the contracts of Eileen and Colin, and that was taken to board for approval, and then a conversation happened between me and Colin on the night after the board, same with Eileen, and it was very clearly laid out there would be no renewal of contract.
David, how were you under the impression that Colin had walked when Marc had a conversation with him to say his contract wouldn't be renewed and he wanted to stay?
Thank you. Just to echo Marc's comments about, gratitude to Colin for his time with the association. In terms of the exchange that I had with Colin, it was very clear that Colin's contract had not been renewed. It couldn't have been any clearer. The, I suppose, confusion or maybe the question mark is around, at that time, we were made aware by his agent that Colin had other suitors, and this was when he was in, I suppose, the job market per se. We were always open to whoever was appointed as head coach, considering Colin as a number 2, but it's always most important for the head coach to have that choice and that opportunity to appoint their own number 2. So the exchange I had with Colin was very clear that while we as an association would welcome the opportunity to work with him in the future, there's no contract at the moment, but subject to who comes in and whether or not they would express an interest in Colin as being their number 2, we would be open to it. And that is simply how the conversation played out.
Joe? Yeah. Carla, apologies if we just touch on this for a moment because we will be speaking to you at length, but Marc, how do you react to Colin's assertion that he turned down the job as manager of Cove Ramblers because of an assurance from you that he would be kept on post the November playoff?
Yeah, look, my conversations with Colin, as I've said consistently, that there would always be a review that's consistent with others, and I assured him that after the Wales games, if we qualify, of course there would be no need to have a conversation because we would be in Switzerland competing in the Euros. If we didn't qualify, then we would do a review and we would look to make a quick decision. That was also communicated with Eileen, but that would be informed by a review that's very consistent to others. And we made that process very quick and swift, but comprehensive and thorough. and then made the decision and communicated as clearly and as quickly as we could do.
And David, finally at this point, you were adamant that Colin was mistaken in his assertion that you believed he was leaving on his own accord.
Yes, that is a misunderstanding by Colin. We could not have been clearer that his contract had concluded. The belief I had was that he had genuine opportunity elsewhere, and while he could have sat back and waited to see what head coach was appointed and take his chances as to whether or not he would be considered for a number 2, I expressed that I would understand if he did take another opportunity because it was a risk for him, and that was simply the correspondence that we had.
Calvin Cooley.
Sorry. Marc, I know you talked about the conversation being confidential. Colin has publicised that conversation, so that ship has sailed. Do you dispute this version of events? Whereas as Colin has tried them today after?
Like I said, we reiterate, Colin was an employee of the association, so like any employee of the association, we don't get into talking about details publicly about that.
Those details are already public, though.
Yeah, but
so
that's
people will be wondering whether you believe they're accurate, or is Colin not telling the truth? One or the other.
That's their decision to do that. I said very clearly that consistently throughout all of those conversations, it was very clear, like we've done with other processes that you know, and all of the people in this room know, that we've done a review at the end of the campaign, and that would be then collated, would inform our decision to then go to the board to seek approval for that decision. And that was very clearly communicated all the way through.
It seems like Colin has a different version of events. If you're not going to dispute this here, I think it's fair for everyone to infer that he's being accurate.
You're trying to get me to say a certain thing, Gavin. I would say we consistently communicated there would be a review, so any interpretation of assurances were their interpretation of that conversation, and I was always very clear that there would be a review after the campaign had finished and a decision would be made from that information.
It's a heck of a misinterpretation on Colin's part to turn down the co-brander's job based off that, given, as we know, how that job would have suited his personal circumstances at the time.
We were clear in communication with him and his agent that we wouldn't have stood in Colin's way, gave permission for Colin to speak to the club. It was his choice to turn down that opportunity.
And David, again, I'm quite confused as to how there's been a misunderstanding between him and your messages to him. Can you clarify what was the content of this message that you sent him? I know you're talking about it's his choice to take other roles. This was sent on December 12th after he left. There was no question of taking another role. The co-brander's job was gone at that point.
So this was a separate opportunity that we were made aware he had been approached about, and given he was out of contract with the association, while I, on a personal level, enjoyed working with Colin, even though we didn't get to work particularly closely, I was very open to him being involved in Irish football moving forward, and obviously...
But it was gone at this point.
Yes, but so his contract had concluded, but as I outlined a couple of minutes ago, had he wanted to wait to see who was appointed as the head coach, he could very well have been considered as a number 2. But we would never have forced a number 2 on a head coach. So it was his volition to choose whether or not he wanted to explore another opportunity, and I was simply wishing him the best.
Okay, so he's misinterpreted your comments.
Yes.
Okay.
Calvin, just wrap up there. The questions, we'll just move on to other people now, please.
Yeah, okay.
Calvin,
Marc, is Eileen Gleeson still an employee of the FAI? If so, what's her position?
Again, like Colin, thanks to Eileen for all of her work and commitment to Irish football, and also with the women's team. Her contract has ended as head coach, as you all know. Again, you'll be maybe frustrated to hear that all those conversations are confidential, and we're working through that at the moment.
Okay, is she still an employee of the FAI?
The contract as head coach is finished, and we're working through all of those conversations, and I hope that you respect and understand that we can't comment on people's contracts.
Do you want her to be an employee of the FAI?
I'm just going to repeat the same thing, Gavin, so you can keep asking, and I'm going to keep repeating the same thing.
Thanks.
Carla, obviously you were involved with the US team during the Olympics. Was
Yeah.
Emma someone that you spoke to about taking on this role and moving into an international job?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Emma's been an unbelievable mentor, like a big sister for me for quite some time now, and somebody I've leaned on in a lot of moments in my career, and she's guided, she's helped me. So yeah, we had a conversation. She was probably the one person that knew throughout the whole process. Obviously, somebody that guided me and gave me some very good advice, particularly ahead of the last interview. So yeah, she's been unbelievable for me, and I can't thank her enough.
And what's your ambition for this team going forward? Obviously the aim has been laid out, regular qualification for tournaments, but where the team is at now, what's your goal for the next few months and how to push this team forward to the next level?
Yeah, look, first of all, we need to get to work. We've got a lot to do. I've made it very, very clear that we have to win football matches. We have to try and get out of the Nations League. We have to get to the World Cup, and I'm very clear in short-term and long-term plans. But first of all, we need to get amongst the players, and whilst there's a lot to do, and there is a lot to do, I think the camp's coming around so quickly, it's really important that we look at players, we get to games, starting this weekend. As soon as the League of Ireland starts, we need to be over here having a look at players. Need to go and probably meet clubs over here as well, make sure we're visible and they understand that actually there is a pathway to the national team. So, yeah, look, I could probably answer that with an hour-long question because there's a lot to do, but one thing is for sure, we're getting to work.
Carla,
Hi.
Obviously games this weekend. What's the plan? Is it Aaron maybe against your former club? And have you got the chance to maybe talk to some of the senior players like Caitlin Taylor?
Yeah, I've spoke to quite a few. Once it got announced last night, I was on the phone solidly, hid myself away in the room and ran quite a lot of staff and players, and that will continue today. Had some really good conversations with senior players. So, yeah, I think this weekend it's looking at where we can maximise how many players we can see at different games. Like you've alluded to, there's going to be four players playing Everton at the lovely Walton Hall, and I love it there because we normally win there, but it's not a place that sometimes you can get to too easily. But definitely we'll be looking at some games on Sunday. But yeah, look, we have to be looking at as many games as possible in this period.
I'm sure you were looking at the squad ahead of taking the role. Any concerns that there's some senior players who've retired, like Fahey and Courell?
Yeah, look, they're two unbelievable figures and people that I've played against, I've had a good relationship with over the years, and I think there's opportunity where we can utilise them, if I'm honest, and that they don't know that yet, and it's something that we've discussed. But I think there's opportunity. I think there'll be holes left from an off-the-pitch culture point of view when you take those types of people out of the environment. So, look, I'll be tapping into them whether they're here or not. So I think that's going to be important.
And one more for me. You mentioned the League of Ireland. How are you looking to maybe bridge that gap between the League of Ireland and the senior squad? Obviously, Julian Russell is a standout player in the squad and a standout player in the league. You're probably aware there was home-based player squads at training sessions before. What is your thinking around that process?
Yeah, I reached out to Julianne last night because as a fellow mum, I think it's important that she understands my take on how we can help her as a mum as well, and that's going to be really important. So, look, I think for me, the sooner we can get into clubs, League of Ireland clubs, and show that we have a plan, then, I won't go into what that plan looks like, but certainly I've, put something to the board on how we can bridge the gap, how I believe that we can see those players a little bit more, and give them an opportunity, because, look, I've got a 5-year-old that I hope that's got a pathway wherever she is, and we've got to make sure that all the girls growing up in Ireland know there's a pathway.
Question for Marc. Again, come back to the Colin Healy issue, Marc. Colin said a few weeks before you would verbally assured him that your recommendation to the board would be that his contract should be extended alongside Eileen. Is Colin correct in that?
I would say something similar to what I already said, but we didn't give Colin any absolute guarantees or assurances that his contract would be renewed. Eileen was the head coach, and the conversation we had was that in any conversation, actually, the priority would be the head coach as the first conversation, and the decision would be made following a review that we've done across other teams and other head coaches. So there were no guarantees or full assurances given to Colin that he would be renewed his contract, because we still had 2 games to play, important games that were 4 weeks after the first conversation we had, and it would always be based on the review and the findings and how the games went against Wales.
Question for David. FAI, high-profile association, the national teams are two of the biggest sports teams in the country. You're also an employer. I mean, Colin's language here, I'm quite taken aback by the coolness from you. His language is very emotive, lack transparency, compassion, disregard towards show my welfare as an employee. He also talks about losing his wife. I find the coolness from the top table very hard to take, given that Colin was an employee. There doesn't seem to be any duty of care to Colin as an employee.
Look, I think we're all absolutely sympathetic to Colin's family situation, there's no doubt about that. And he is very highly regarded and very liked within the association. And I know that the team rallied around him and provided him with the support at that time. And obviously, you know, my heart goes out to anyone in that situation. With that said, as outlined, this was a footballing decision, and as such, this is where we stand today, I'm afraid.
Sean O'Connor.
Marc, just following on from Aidan's question, Colin accused the FAI of a lack of transparency and compassion when he says he was called a matter of minutes before Eileen's news came out, and following a few minutes later there was no mention of his name in the statement. You can kind of see where it's coming from.
Yeah, that comment isn't completely accurate. The conversation that I had with Colin was after the board meeting, after the decision was made. First conversation was with Eileen, as you'd expect. Second conversation with Colin in terms of that. So it was communicated on what the decision was. There was also communication before the Wales games. There was also communication between the Wales games during the review, and also up to the board decision in terms of what would happen. And it was clearly laid out that a decision would be made at that period of time before Christmas, because Eileen and Colin in particular needed absolute clarity of what was going on, and we believed that was the right thing to do also. We understand that Colin obviously wasn't mentioned in the press release, something for us to reflect on, but it was very clearly communicated with Colin that he would not be renewing his contract, and it was after the board meeting.
Why was Colin's name not mentioned in that statement? He had to go to his own representatives to get the news out on his part.
There's something for us to reflect on. We wanted the press release to be clear on Eileen at the time, because she was what we thought was the priority as the head coach. And maybe if we had our time back, we could have created that clarity, but it was absolutely our decision to make the decision that Colin wouldn't renew his contract. And we have to make these difficult decisions. And as David said, it was a purely football decision. We do respect Colin, and we understand his personal circumstances have been devastating for him in the last year, and we've tried to support him, but in this moment it's been a football decision, and we believe that the new head coach, Carla, had needed to have the opportunity to bring in an assistant head coach. We think that's a critical role.
And just finally, I wanted to hear your thoughts on what you made of Denise O'Sullivan and Caitlin Hayes' comments last month.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with the players. We communicate with them regularly, open dialogue, so that's a good thing in terms of our communication with them. Obviously we didn't qualify, so there was a lot of thoughts and feelings around that. The players and the staff were all in it together, and we're ultimately trying to achieve that goal, and didn't do. So naturally there was some feelings of disappointment, frustration, in some cases anger around that, and it's natural to have those emotions. The players built up a good relationship with staff, including Colin, which is quite clear. So we don't have any problem with players expressing their feelings, and they share that with us as well. So obviously that was public, but we've had those conversations with players to get their feelings as well.
Rachel.
Carla, I want to ask you about, I know you place a lot of importance on environment and culture within a squad. It's something I've heard from players, that this culture within the squad is like nothing they've ever really experienced anywhere else. So how much are you looking forward to getting stuck into that and getting involved in that?
Yeah, I love it. You know me well, right? So it's something that I pride myself on. I talk about it a lot. It's so important. It's not easy to create. So the fact that they've got that already is massive, and you could feel that from the players that I spoke to last night, and togetherness, and how excited everyone is to just get going again. But look, it's number one for me. People, culture, how we treat people, how we look after people, and yeah, it's massively important. So the fact that it's tight already is great. It makes it a lot easier for sure.
Okay.
There's a hand here, I think.
Sorry, can't see. Yeah, go ahead. Second.
Carla, welcome to Ireland, and congratulations on the appointment. One of the difficulties that previous squads have faced in regards to trying to achieve the goals that you have for qualifying major tournaments is there's been a lack of a consistent goal-scoring striker in Irish women's football for at least 15 years at this stage. Our top goal scorer is a midfielder, our second top goal scorer is a midfielder, and the third top goal scorer still currently available to you is a centre half. So in order to achieve the goals that you've set out, you're going to have to try and find somebody with an Irish granny or an Irish mother or somebody born here that can hit the back of the net consistently. And also, with the age profile of some of the players in the squad, this is going to be a fairly transitional period for you as well.
You're not wrong, by the way. It's what we were talking about over breakfast this morning. How do we find a centre forward with Irish heritage? And being really honest, we've reached out to quite a few agents this morning to try and find out, in a few in particular.
A suggestion. We've been in the EU since 1973. See if there's anybody with a German mother and an Irish father or something like that.
There we go. I tell you what else. In America, there is loads of dual nationalities.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, it's something we're on with. It's an area, of course, we need to score goals, 100%. So, yeah, look, we're on the same page there. We absolutely need someone to put a ball in the back of the net.